The Jinn's Wrath. The New World. The salty air of New York Harbor clung to Omar Al-Fayad's clothes as he disembarked the crowded steamer. The year was 1884, and Ellis Island loomed as a gateway to dreams, or nightmares, for immigrants like him. America, the New World, was bursting with opportunity and money for the taking, or at least that's what he'd been told. Clutching a battered satchel and the weighty lamp wrapped tightly in burlap, Omar stepped into a world buzzing with ambition, greed, and hostility. The Lower East Side, a maze of tenements and alleyways, was his new home. The air was thick with the stench of sweat, shit, and despair. Omar navigated the bustling streets, his dark skin and accent drawing sharp glares and muttered slurs from both native-born Americans and other immigrant groups. A Syrian shopkeeper, Khalid, grudgingly rented him a closet-sized room above his grocery store, warning him not to draw attention. Omar worked tirelessly, hauling crates and scrubbing floors, his dreams of wealth and success quickly eroding under the weight of reality. His savings dwindled as he was cheated out of wages and extorted by local gangs. Every night he stared at the lamp, its ornate carvings mocking him. Could the legends be true? Could this battered relic hold the answers to his desperation? One stormy evening, after another grueling day, Omar reached his breaking point. His hands trembled as he lit a single candle in his cramped room, the flickering light casting shadows on the peeling wallpaper. With a deep breath, he unwrapped the lamp and rubbed its tarnished surface. The room darkened unnaturally, the candle snuffing out despite the absence of wind. A low, guttural hum filled the space, growing into a deafening roar. Omar stumbled back, his heart hammering in his chest. From the lamp's spout, a column of black smoke erupted, swirling and twisting until it solidified into a towering figure. The Jinn stood before him, its form both mesmerizing and terrifying. Its body shimmered like molten obsidian, veins of fiery gold pulsing beneath its surface. Eyes like burning coals bore into Omar, and a wide, predatory grin revealed sharp, glinting teeth.
You have summoned me, mortal.
The Jinn intoned, its voice a blend of 1,000 whispers. 3 wishes are yours, but heed this. The price is never as it seems. Omar's knees threatened to buckle, but he forced himself to stand. His throat was dry as he croaked, I need your help. The Jinn laughed, a sound that seemed to rattle the very walls. All who call upon me do. Speak your desires, and they shall be yours. Omar hesitated, the weight of the Jinn's warning pressing down on him. But the memory of his humiliations and struggles flared in his mind. I wish for wealth, he said, his voice trembling but resolute. Enough to live well and make my mark here. The Jinn's grin widened. As you wish. The lamp glowed brightly, and the Jinn dissolved into a haze of smoke that seeped into the cracks of the floorboards. The storm outside raged harder, thunder booming as if the heavens themselves objected. Omar collapsed onto his cot, exhaustion and terror overtaking him. The next morning, the air was eerily still. Omar awoke to find a letter slid under his door. It bore no name, only an address scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. Following the directions, he arrived at a stately home in a wealthier part of the city. There he was met by a lawyer who informed him of his inheritance, a vast fortune from a distant relative he had never heard of. Confused but elated, Omar accepted the inheritance, moving into the mansion and leaving the squalor of the tenements behind. Yet, as he explored his new home, he couldn't shake the unease that clung to him. The Jinn's words echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of the price yet to be paid. The next evening, news reached him of the mysterious death of a wealthy merchant, a man found dead in his own home, his body twisted in agony, a look of sheer terror frozen on his face. Omar felt the blood drain from his cheeks as he realized the merchant's fortune had become his own. The Jinn had delivered on its promise. But at what cost? The first wish. Omar's newfound wealth transformed his life overnight. The once downtrodden immigrant now strutted through Manhattan streets in tailored suits, his pockets lined with money. The mansion he had inherited, lavishly adorned with gilded furniture and Persian carpets, was a stark contrast to the squalid tenement he had once called home. Servants bustled about, catering to his every whim. Yet despite his material gains, unease gnawed at him. The death of the merchant, whose fortune he now possessed, haunted Omar's thoughts. Was it mere coincidence, or had the Jinn orchestrated the man's demise? The thought sent a chill down his spine, but he pushed it aside, convincing himself that such wealth must come with sacrifice. Omar used his newfound influence to establish himself as a businessman, buying up properties and investing in ventures that catered to the city's elite. But his success didn't go unnoticed. Other immigrant groups resented his rapid ascent, while the native-born Americans saw him as an outsider meddling in their affairs. Whispered threats turned into overt hostility. One evening, as Omar attended a high society gala, he found himself cornered by Henry Caldwell, a wealthy industrialist known for his disdain of immigrants. Caldwell's sneer was as sharp as his words. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what isn't yours, Al-Fayad? This city doesn't belong to you." Omar's jaw tightened, his fists clenched at his sides. "I earned my place here just like anyone else," he retorted, though his voice betrayed a flicker of doubt. Caldwell leaned in, his voice low and menacing. "Watch yourself, or you'll find out how quickly this city can spit you out." The encounter left Omar seething with rage. His wealth had brought him comfort, but not acceptance. That night, as he paced his mansion, he unwrapped the lamp again, its golden surface gleaming in the dim candlelight. He had tried to avoid calling upon the Jinn, but his anger and frustration burned hotter than his fear. He rubbed the lamp. Once more, the air grew heavy, the shadows deepening as the Jinn materialized. Its fiery eyes regarded Omar with amusement. "You return so soon, Master," it purred, the word "Master" dripping with mockery. "Have you already tired of your riches?" Omar took a deep breath, his fists trembling. "I want power," he said, his voice firm. "I wish for the kind of power that commands respect and fear." The Jinn's grin widened, its teeth gleaming like knives. "Power comes in many forms, mortal. Be precise." Omar hesitated, the Jinn's warning echoing in his mind. But the memory of Caldwell's sneer and the constant slurs he endured fueled his resolve. "I wish to be untouchable, above all others." The Jinn nodded, its body dissolving into smoke that coiled around Omar like a serpent. The room seemed to pulse with energy, the air crackling as though the fabric of reality itself was shifting. The next morning, Omar awoke to find himself stronger, faster, and more imposing. His reflection in the mirror revealed subtle but striking changes. His posture exuded authority, his voice carried an unnatural resonance, and his eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dark. People who once dismissed or mocked him now cowered in his presence. His newfound power was put to the test when a group of Irish dock workers, incensed by Omar's rise, ambushed him in an alley. They swung bats and knives with murderous intent, but Omar moved like a predator, his reflexes unnaturally sharp. He disarmed one attacker with a single bone-crushing blow, his strength far surpassing that of any man. The others fled, their screams echoing in the night. The corpse of his attacker lay bloodied and broken on the ground. But the power came at a price. The more Omar wielded his abilities, the more the Jinn's essence seemed to seep into him. He began hearing whispers in the dead of night, voices urging him to take vengeance on those who wronged him. His temper grew shorter, his actions more ruthless. The line between man and monster blurred. One evening, Omar confronted Caldwell in his opulent office. The industrialist's smug demeanour faltered as Omar approached, his towering figure casting a long shadow. "You threatened me, Caldwell," Omar said, his voice low and menacing. "Now, I threaten you." Caldwell laughed nervously, reaching for the revolver hidden in his desk. But before he could draw, Omar moved with inhuman speed, pinning him to the wall. "You think you're better than me?" Omar hissed, his grip tightening. "Say it now." Caldwell gasped for air, his face turning purple. You're not human," he choked out. Omar released him, letting the industrialist collapse in a heap. "Remember that," he growled before leaving Caldwell alive but broken. As he walked away, the whispers in his mind grew louder, more insistent. The Jinn's laughter echoed faintly in his ears. Omar had gained power, but at what cost? And how far was he willing to go? The second wish. Omar's power had solidified his position in the city. His enemies either feared or avoided him, and his wealth grew exponentially. Yet his victories felt hollow. The whispers in his mind, the unrelenting presence of the Jinn, left him restless and paranoid. Power had isolated him, and in the shadows of his opulent mansion, loneliness took root. Late one night, as a storm battered the city, Omar sat in his study, surrounded by ledgers and letters. The rain hammered against the windows, and the flickering light of the fire cast long, distorted shadows on the walls. He poured himself a glass of imported whiskey, his hands trembling. Despite his dominance, the cost of his first two wishes gnawed at him. He retrieved the lamp once more, turning it over in his hands. "What's the point of power," he muttered, "if you have no one to share it with?" The words lingered in the air, and before he could stop himself, he rubbed the lamp. The now familiar sensation of the room darkening enveloped him. The Jinn emerged, its form towering and sinuous, its eyes burning like embers. "You summon me again," the Jinn intoned, its voice tinged with amusement. "What troubles you, Master? Have your newfound abilities failed to satisfy?" Omar looked up at the creature, his expression a mixture of desperation and defiance. "I have power, yes, but what I lack is love, companionship." The Jinn tilted its head, mockingly sympathetic. "Ah, the mortal heart. So fragile, so needy. Do you seek a companion then? A wife? A lover? Say the word and it shall be done." Omar hesitated. The Jinn's words carried an edge of cruelty, but his loneliness was a gaping void he could no longer ignore. "I wish for the love of a woman, true, unwavering love." The Jinn's smile widened, its teeth gleaming. "As you wish." The storm outside intensified, the wind howling as the Jinn dissolved into smoke, swirling around the room. Omar felt a strange warmth settle over him, a sensation both comforting and unnerving. Moments later, the smoke coalesced into a figure, a woman. She was stunning, her beauty almost otherworldly. Her dark eyes were deep pools of emotion, her smile radiant yet tinged with mystery. She wore a dress of deep crimson, and her presence filled the room like a symphony. Omar's heart raced as she approached him. "My name is Layla," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "And I am yours." At first, Layla seemed like the answer to all of Omar's problems. She was intelligent, kind, and fiercely loyal. She supported his ventures, soothed his troubled mind, and filled his home with warmth. For a time, Omar allowed himself to believe he had found happiness. But as the weeks passed, strange things began to happen. Layla's laughter would echo too long in the empty halls. Her gaze would linger on Omar with an intensity that made him uneasy. On several occasions, he found her speaking to herself in a language he didn't recognize, her voice low and urgent. Omar dismissed these incidents, chalking them up to his own paranoia. But one evening, as he returned home from a meeting, he overheard Layla speaking to someone in the study. The door was ajar and he could see her standing alone, her back to him. "No, I haven't told him yet," she said, her tone sharp. "He doesn't suspect a thing." Omar's blood ran cold. Who was she speaking to? He pushed the door open, his voice trembling with anger. "Layla, who are you talking to?" She turned, her face a mask of calm. "No one, my love. I was just thinking aloud." But Omar wasn't convinced. The whispers in his mind grew louder that night, the Jinn's laughter weaving through his thoughts. He couldn't shake the feeling that Layla's love was too perfect, too convenient. Was it truly genuine, or had the Jinn twisted his wish yet again? The truth revealed itself in the most brutal way. One night Omar awoke to find Layla standing over him, a knife in her hand. Her eyes were cold, her face devoid of the warmth he had come to love. "I'm sorry, Omar," she whispered, her voice eerily detached, "but this is what must be done." Before she could strike, Omar reacted instinctively, his enhanced strength allowing him to wrestle the knife from her grasp. They struggled, the room filling with the sound of shouts and shattering furniture, Omar pinning her to the ground. "Why?" he demanded, his voice breaking. "Why are you doing this?" Layla's expression softened, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. Because I was never real, she admitted. The Jinn created me, but I am bound to its will. It wants you to suffer, Omar. It feeds on your despair. Omar stared at her, his heart shattering. I loved you, he said, his voice a whisper. And I loved you in the only way I could, she replied. But this was always how it would end. As the life drained from her eyes, she crumbled to dust around him. Omar felt a deep, searing pain unlike anything he had ever experienced. The Jinn's voice echoed in his mind, triumphant and cruel. Love, mortal, is the sharpest weapon of all. Omar was left alone once more, the warmth Layla had brought to his life replaced by a cold void. He clutched the lamp in his hands, his knuckles white. 2 wishes down. 1 remained. The final wish. Omar had spent weeks grappling with the loss of Layla and the crushing realization of the Jinn's manipulative nature. Each corner of his mansion echoed with her presence, but the warmth had turned into a suffocating chill. He avoided the lamp, fearful of what the Jinn might twist if he dared. He knew now that every wish he had made had been a trap, designed by the Jinn to deepen his misery. Omar needed to end this cycle, not with another wish, but with cunning. He spent the days in his study, poring over ancient texts and scrolls he had collected from various parts of the world, seeking any knowledge on jinns and their bindings. His research bore fruit. A passage from an old Arabian manuscript spoke of a ritual to bind a jinn back into its vessel, a way to seal the lamp without a wish. Omar prepared meticulously. He gathered salt, iron filings, and several rare herbs known for their protective properties against supernatural beings. Under the cover of night, he set up a circle in the centre of his study, the symbols from the manuscript etched with precision into the floor. With everything in place, Omar took a deep breath and rubbed the lamp for the last time. The jinn materialized, its form even more imposing and arrogant, expecting another wish. "What do you desire now, Master?" the jinn asked, its voice dripping with mockery. Omar feigned desperation, his voice shaking. "I need peace, Jinn. Peace from this torment. I wish for calmness in my heart." The jinn's eyes narrowed, sensing the change in Omar's demeanour. "A simple wish," it mused. "Let it be done." But as the jinn began to weave its magic, Omar swiftly stepped into the circle, breaking the jinn's concentration. He chanted the ancient words from the manuscript, his voice steady despite his fear. The room filled with a humming energy as the circle glowed, the symbols on the floor igniting with a silver light. The jinn tried to move, but found itself bound by the magic of the circle. "What trickery is this?" it bellowed, its form flickering as it tried to escape the binding spell. "You underestimated me," Omar replied, his voice cold and clear. "I've learned that wishes are not the answer. Binding you is." The jinn's laughter turned into a snarl. "You think you can trap me without a wish? Your knowledge is but a flicker against my eternal night." But Omar had one more trick up his sleeve. He pulled out a vial of holy water, blessed by a priest from the local church, and threw it at the jinn. The creature hissed as the water sizzled against its form, weakening its resistance. "Now, return to your lamp," Omar commanded, his voice echoing with the power of the ritual. The jinn struggled, its form shrinking under the combined force of the holy water and the binding spell. With a final furious roar, it was sucked back into the lamp, the spout sealing shut with a loud, definitive clink. Silence fell over the room. Omar stood there, breathing heavily, the lamp now just an ordinary object in his hands. He knew better than to destroy it. The jinn might find a way back through destruction. Instead, he wrapped it in layers of cloth, placed it in an iron box, and buried it deep beneath the foundations of his mansion, where no one would ever disturb it. Omar felt no joy in his victory, only relief and a haunting sense of loss. He had outsmarted the jinn, but at what cost? His life was a shadow of what it could have been, marked by the pain of his wishes. Yet he had reclaimed his autonomy, his life now his own to live or mend. As dawn broke, casting soft light into the room, Omar looked out over the city. He was a man free from the jinn's wrath but bound by the scars of his past. He knew rebuilding would be hard, but for the first time in a long while, he faced the future with the resolve to do it alone, uncursed by wishes. And this time, he would use his knowledge to build a new life and find a new love.
Bloody Mary's horror story.